Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the Epson QL7000 projector. Last year, Epson introduced its new QL series of projectors with two high-end models, the QL3000 and the QL7000. These projectors borrow the same high brightness technology from Epson's commercial lineup, but are designed specifically for residential use. The thing is, there's always been a huge gap in the home projector market. On one side, you've got affordable models that max out at around 2,000 to 3,500 anti-lumens. On the other, you have high brightness projectors that cost close to six figures, and they also come with other challenges too. Many of these projectors require 240 volt power, take up a ton of space, and generate way too much heat and noise to be placed even in the same room. That's exactly where the Epson QL7000 comes in. It's the flagship model of the QL series, packing 10,000 ISO lumens of brightness and using the same QZX picture processor found in the rest of the lineup. One of the best things? It runs on a standard 120 volt outlet. No need for any special wiring, just plug and play. Now the QL7000 is sold as a body-only unit, meaning it doesn't come with a lens. Epson offers 10 different lens options, ranging from ultra short throw to long throw setups. And just like most laser projectors, the light source is rated for up to 20,000 hours. Now you might think a 10,000 lumen projector would be massive, but surprisingly, it's not. It's bigger than an ultra short throw, but similar in size to other high-end projectors from Epson, JVC, and even Sony. It measures 22.4 inches wide by 22.4 inches deep and 7.5 inches tall and weighs about 46.5 pounds. It has front-facing intake vents and side exhaust vents to manage airflow. Epson also allows some customization. The top cover is removable, so you can wrap it in different colors or materials to match your space. It also comes in both black and white finishes. On the back, there are two HDMI 2.1 ports that support 4K at up to 120 Hz, along with two USB Type-A ports, a USB Type-B port, and there's also a RS-232 and an Ethernet port. A removable cover is included to hide the connections. There's also a set of control buttons, including a power, menu, source selection, and a directional pad located in the bottom left corner of the unit. The QL7000 remote is pretty much the same as the LS12000 and QB1000. It's a bit bulky, but it gets the job done. But let's be real, most people buying this projector will integrate it into a control system like Crestron or Control4, so this remote probably won't be used much. There are some grayed out buttons, which suggest that this remote is probably shared across multiple models. For a projector at this price though, I would have liked to have seen a dedicated remote designed specifically for the QL series. That said, the remote does include a backlight, which makes it easy to use in a dark room. Setting up the QL7000 is pretty straightforward, even though it doesn't come with a lens. Most people will probably have an installer handle it, but if you're doing it yourself, attaching the lens is actually easier than it looks. When you unbox the projector, you'll see a plastic cap covering the lens socket. Just lift that off. Right above the socket, there's a lock lever with a stopper. Remove the stopper. Just make sure that the lock lever is in the release position. Then align the lens with the socket using the white dot on top as a guide. Once it's lined up, hold the lens in place and move the lock lever into the locked position. Finally, put the stopper back and then you're good to go. For this review, Epson sent me the ELP-ML15 middle throw zoom lens, which retails for $1,693. I tested this projector on two setups, a 138-inch 235 Stewart Film Screen Studio Tech 130 in my movie room, and also a 120-inch 16:9 silver ticket screen in my living room. Both setups had a 16-foot throw distance. Once you install the lens, the QL7000 runs on an automatic calibration cycle that takes about 2 minutes. After that, it autofocuses the image, but you can manually tweak the zoom and lens shift if needed. The QL7000 includes 4 picture presets: Dynamic, Vivid, Cinema, and Natural. Dynamic and Vivid prioritize brightness, while Cinema and Natural focus more on accuracy out of the box. Although the mode names remain the same across SDR and HDR, each one allows for independent settings depending on the content being viewed. The laser light output can be adjusted in 5% increments, ranging from 30 to 100%. What I found interesting about the QL7000 was that there doesn't appear to be different fan curves. And surprisingly, even at full brightness, fan noise stays low, only about 33 dB, even after a 2-hour movie. That's even quieter than the QB1000 I reviewed earlier this year. For most of my testing, I use dynamic mode since it offers better contrast and more aggressive laser dimming without compromising highlights. One thing worth noting is that full fade to black is only available in dynamic mode. I actually spoke with Epson about this. They didn't make any promises, but they did say that they've heard the feedback and are working to try to release this in a future firmware update. Alright, let's talk about real world performance. And this is where the QL7000 shines, quite literally. This thing is insanely bright. Before RP22, the industry standard recommended 100 nits on screen for SDR and HDR. The new RP22 standard now recommends 300 nits for HDR, which is way beyond what most projectors can do. The Epson QL7000 hits that with no problem. And after experiencing 300 nits on a projector, it's really hard to go back. My JVC projector delivers around 140 nits in HDR, and while I always thought it was bright enough, it feels dim in comparison now. Before calibration, I measured 10,063 ANSI lumens in dynamic mode. After calibration, it still hits 7,600 ANSI lumens, which is more than enough for a massive screen or a bright living room. Even with the blinds open in the middle of the day, the image still held up surprisingly well. With this much brightness, you would expect contrast and black levels to take a hit, but the QL7000 holds up well. Maintaining deep blacks is always a challenge for any projector this bright, but contrast was solid, coming in with a native contrast of 3,794 to 1 in dynamic mode. Colors look great before and after calibration. The projector covers around 81.6% of the DCI-P3 color gamut, which might seem low compared to other standard home theater projectors, but with higher brightness projectors, the brightness makes up for this. Increased brightness naturally improves how colors are perceived, making them appear more saturated to the human eye. One of the biggest strengths of the QL7000, besides its brightness, is its tone mapping. When you have a projector that can't get as bright, tone mapping essentially compresses the image by taking a wide range of luminance values from an HDR source and remapping them into a smaller range. But having a brighter image to begin with helps maintain detail. Just like the QB1000, the QL7000 takes a straightforward approach here, offering a simple on-off switch without customization options to fine-tune the brightness. But the difference between the two models means that the QL7000 doesn't need to compress HDR content as aggressively, and it really shows. Tone mapping performed exceptionally well in my testing. The final hotel fight scene in John Wick Chapter 3 had an incredible level of detail with bright white neon lights that stood out without washing out the rest of the image. One topic that always comes up with Epson projectors is that they use 4-way pixel shifting instead of a native 4K panel. I also spoke with Epson about this, and the main reason they haven't gone to native 4K panels just yet is they want to prioritize brightness over native 4K panels because smaller pixels lead to more light loss. Given that you can see more detail with this tight brightness the projector puts out, I paid close attention to this during my testing. From my viewing distance of about 10 feet, the difference in detail and sharpness compared to a native 4K panel was fairly subtle. When focusing on fine details, I wouldn't call it a night and day difference. If you're standing right in front of the screen, you're going to see some difference, but nobody watches movies that closely. Would a native 4K panel be nice? Of course. But in actual use, the difference isn't as significant as you might think. This leads to the sharpness settings of the projector. There are presets when it comes to sharpening, and I found that preset 3 provided the best balance, while one of my friends preferred the more processed look of preset 4. Even at the lower presets, it added a fine amount of detail without ever looking artificial. The Epson QL7000 is a serious projector with a serious price tag, $30,000 before adding a lens. But what you get is something that stands out in a market where high brightness projectors are usually limited to commercial spaces or 6-figure home theater setups. Once you see 300 nits on a big screen, it's hard to go back. The QL7000 is a reminder that projectors still have a place in home entertainment, and for that it earns an AVS Forum Top Choice for 2025. If you like this review, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.